Okay, I was thinking about, I made a name error last week. You're supposed to catch me on this. I said Francis and Crick. It's not Francis and Crick. Watson and Crick. Thank you. It's Francis Crick and James Watson, I think is the other guy's name. James Watson. They're the co-discoverers of the DNA strand, the structure of it. I said Francis and Crick last week. It's Francis Crick and James Watson. They were the co-discoverers of that. But anyway, I listened to the feed this morning and figured there's all kinds of people now that think I don't know what I'm talking, which may still be true. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I wanted to. Oh, also, is Europa a moon of Saturn? Europa. That might be a dangerous search. I'm not going to do that search. Let's just say, I think it's Saturn. Let's go with that and we'll leave it right there. I should have searched that at home. Okay. Genesis chapter 6, one of my favorite, not because I'm macabre or sadistic, but one of my favorite passages to talk about because it is reflective of so many elements of biblical theology, promise, judgment, corporate judgment, depravity, all of these, all just very, very bedrock, the theological grounding for so much of, or is included, the grounding, the foundation of biblical theology is represented a lot in Genesis chapter 6. So we'll talk about some more about that. I mentioned that last week, but we'll see that as we go. Anyway, one more thing. We were talking last week about, I said rather provocatively that when it comes to creation, I have my nonsense about Genesis chapter 1 and God creating the heavens and the earth in 7 days, which is the way the world thinks about it. And they have their nonsense. And the problem is that actually that's overstating it. They don't have any nonsense. They don't even have nonsense. There's no naturalistic creation story. There is no evidential basis for the beginning of the evolutionary project, the evolution of life on Earth. There simply is no anything approaching compelling evidential foundation for chemical evolution and the origin of life. And so, that puts Christians at a disadvantage because we got all kinds of writing on this stuff. And it sounds like nonsense to the non-believing world. So, they get to throw stones at it. So they do. Talk about what nonsense Genesis chapter 1 is. My problem is, you don't give me anything to throw stones at. I want your creation story so I can throw stones at your creation story like you throw stones at mine. But if you're just going to sit in the back of the room and throw stones from a privileged position of not having anything, then I simply don't care. But if you give me something, then we can have a discussion. But as things stand right now, even I take the myths over. I take the creation myths of the ancient Near East, Gilgamesh, and these things over what we have now, because at least they started from somewhere. It mattered to these people to understand origins, so much so that they made sure they had an origin story. But I just don't know how you proceed through, and rather dogmatically and ferociously, the orthodoxy of evolutionary theory with no creation story. It'd be like the Bible with no Genesis chapters 1 or 2, and all those passages that refer to Genesis chapter 1 and 2 cut out. Imagine that that's the Bible. I don't know that that's a Bible worth believing in. Genesis chapter, God is the creator. The creator is as I've said before, the foundational principle of all. I'm more convinced of this now than ever, of all biblical theology and Christian belief. It is the starting point for all of it. And if you get that wrong, you have no chance of getting it right. Everybody, the Creator deserves and commands the worship and service of every single one of his creatures, whether his creatures are Christians or not, just by birth. They may not be Christians, but they're still creatures created in the image of God. And as such, everyone is under it's a mandate of creation to worship and serve your creator, period. Nobody gets out of that. Everybody will be held accountable. Yeah, you're going to be held accountable for whether or not you believed in Jesus, let's just say. But more fundamentally, right from the start, your rejection of or embrace of the creator might be even more fundamental. That's my opinion. For the moment, I'm sticking to it. Okay, let's go back and we talked about Genesis 6 last week a little bit. We kind of introduced it. An extraordinary passage. It's amazing how quickly it might seem like, I mean, we've been at this now for what, 2 months or something like that. Genesis 1 through 5. Has it been September? I think we started in September. Was that new this year? So yeah, September, September, October, November. So 2 months. But here we are in 6. And it can seem like a long time, but just think about how fast from Genesis 3, you go back to Genesis 3.
Correction, you started Genesis, you're saying in September by June.
Was it June? Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, that's a lot more. Okay, I'm even righter. It seems like a long time.
June 12.
It seems like a long time. But man, this all happened between 3, where Adam and Eve did the bad thing. They ate the fruit. 3, 4, 5, 3 chapters, and now we're here, and we get this statement in verse 5. It's one of the most stunning statements, very quickly arrived at. You go from the pristine state of creation at the end of Genesis chapter 2, encapsulated in the strange statement, they were both naked and not ashamed. Seems to encapsulate the innocence and purity and pristineness of the whole created order. Everything is just so. Everything is just the way it should be. 1 verse later, it begins to unravel. And then we reach this point when the entire human race is consumed by sin. And sin of a particular kind, which we'll get to in a minute. It's represented by that red down there. But let's read this again, and we'll talk more specifically about it. Now it came about when men began to multiply on the face of the land. So there's the blessing. Right? Be fruitful and multiply. That's exactly what's happening. But only not now, they're not multiplying the image of God in service to God or something like that. They're multiplying like rats we were just talking about, spreading disease. And it's the disease, the contagion of sin or something. It's more like that now. But anyway, men began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves whomever they chose. And there's something about that statement that's got a darkness to it, a sinister element in the last. Never are you going to see this phrase right here, whomever they chose, and have it be, when humans do whatever they want, for all those people who think that, freedom is the be all and end all in terms of God, in relation to God, go find a place in the Bible where people did whatever they chose and it ends up good. I'll give you a good example of that. And that's, now that I'm thinking about it. Judges, 19 or 20. Civil War. This is Book of Judges. The rest of the tribes are going to go to war with Benjamin, and they very nearly exterminate Benjamin. And then after in an orgy of violence, when they very nearly, like the purge, the witching hour or something, and everybody wakes up and realizes what they've done, they go, "Oops, we've almost it's almost like they didn't see that they were responsible. This, Benjamin's close to going out through no fault of our own. What are we going to do about this after they almost destroyed Benjamin? They try to come up with a solution to this fact that Benjamin's about to be exterminated. And so this is that's a great title right there, Provision for Survival. That's nice. So what shall we do, verse 16? What shall we do for wives for those of Benjamin who are left, since the women are destroyed out of Benjamin, or since we murdered them, or something like that? There's got to be an inheritance for them. And so they, this is their solution right here. Say, hey, go and lie in wait in the vineyards. This is just outside Shiloh. And behold, if the daughters of Shiloh, there's that daughters again, come out to take part in the dances, then you should come out of the vineyards, and each of you shall catch his wife from the daughters of Shiloh and go to the land of Benjamin. So they, we did not, let's see. Then the sons of Benjamin, verse 22, did so and took wives according to their number from those who danced, whom they carried away. That's what whatever they chose, whomever they chose, looks like in the book of Judges. It's, huh? It's not a lot of romance. It's not like they were courting. It's not like they were asking for dates or something like that. But it's a very, very dark thing. And then, of course, it ends with that statement right there. Human freedom at its finest. Everyone doing right in his own eyes. That's great. All right. Now we're back to whomever they chose. So it's got a sinister element to it. And the other factor here, of course, is what does he mean by the sons of God? It's a strange way, it's a strange phrase that's never been used in two things. It's never been used in the Bible yet. And number two, angels have never been mentioned. There are no angels in Genesis 1 through 6, 1 through 5. So there's a whole lot of debate about this. And you know, there's this one camp has it as these are fallen angels who are interbreeding with human females or something like that. But the problem with that is you have to provide all of the important elements of that. They're not in the text. You have to read into that sons of God. You have to read into sons of God, angels, where angels I don't think are ever called sons of God in the Bible. So you have to find that. That's number one on the list. How many times is this even sons of God? People get quite vehement about this. Sons of God. Let's just see how many times. So it's used 5 times in the whole Bible, in the whole Old Testament. The other one here is 6:1. No, that's it. That's Genesis. Then 3 times in Job. There's some that Satan also came among them. So here you have close to angels. Maybe, I don't know. And then that's the same thing. So there you have 3 references in Job for sons of God that might mean angels. So yeah, you can get, I guess you can get angels out of this. But now you have to get angels, fallen angels. So now you have to supply, so here you have to supply Job's understanding. You have to read Job into this to get sons of God to mean angels. And then you have to read Isaiah, whatever it is about Lucifer, to get fallen angels. And whenever that's the case, I back off from doing that. I'm gonna look for something more ordinary. And I don't see why it can't be just taken for what it says, which is basically men. Now, maybe men of a special kind or something, but men.
I think some of the fallen angels come from the book of Enoch.
Oh, that's a good point. Maybe we'll go back and look at that.
That's where the fallen angels come into view. Is the book of Enoch. So.
Yeah, okay, if you read First Enoch, I think it's First Enoch, Book of Enoch, written in the intertestamental period, hundred and something BC. This is Moses writing in the 14th century. But you can see what you have to do to get sun. It's very shadowy, exactly what he means, except that what it represents is not. It represents some kind of climactic manifesto from the author about how bad the sin had gotten. In whatever this is, it represents the state of humanity at its worst. It's like the final act, the final, the apex of Adam's sin engulfing the whole human race. That's what it means, whether it's talking about angels or humans or something like that. So however you want to go on that, I go with just people. If I'm wrong, I don't care. That's fine. Certainly angels interbreeding with humans would be a new level of evil, which you don't see, I don't think, anywhere else in the Bible. And it sounds kind of pagan. That happened all the time in pagan myths, but pagan from the Christian standpoint. But anyway, that's the event, and that's the event that prompts in this narrative God to say, that's the final straw. I can't take it anymore. This is God's, I can't take it anymore. If you don't think God is emotional, here's the first time in the text where God is emotional and he is distraught, let's just use that word, by what he sees from the human race. My spirit shall not strive. He uses, by the way, Yahweh. That Lord right there is the covenant name for God, Yahweh, from Exodus chapters 3 and 4. My spirit shall not strive with man forever because he is flesh. What did God call Adam at the curse? Dust. So in Adam, in chapter 3, he was dust, representing nothing, and now corrupted, and now he is flesh, representing just pure corruption, or something like that. Nevertheless, his days shall be 100. I wonder if nevertheless could be and so, or something like that. I don't know Hebrew. His days shall be 120 years. So the human race is on a countdown. The clock is wound. It's written in stone. There is going to be no repentance on the part of either human race or God. There's nothing anybody can do. There's no condition here. Unless ye repent, O human race, I'm giving you 120 years and it's over. There's none of that. It's a decree of God. His days shall be 120 years. And then that statement is between these, that statement separates, is right in the middle of this whole story. So take out that verse and go right straight to 4 after whomever they chose. Or right from verse 2. Whomever took wives for themselves from whoever they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. They procreated. Those were the mighty men of old, the mighty men who were of old, men of renown or stature or something like that. And the statement from God is right in the middle of that story for some reason. I don't really know why, but it's sandwiched in there. So that's interesting. So we have now these Nephilim, which are also mentioned in the Bible in a very, very important passage. Numbers chapter 13, which will precede one of the most tragic days in the history of Israel, when 10 of the spies will lead a revolt against Moses and Aaron because they don't want to go into Canaan, because I told you we shouldn't go in there. I told you we should have never done this. Let's go back to Egypt. And they were getting ready to probably murder Moses and Aaron and head back to Egypt. But of course, the God overall is not going to let that happen. But anyway, the reason that they were so terrified of Canaan was that statement in blue right there. There also we saw the Nephilim. And we became like grasshoppers in our own sight. And so we were in their sight. And so they were terrified of these people that were a lot bigger than them. And so maybe Nephilim just simply means tall man or something like that. Maybe that's all it means. I don't know. But same term. It could be a name or it could just mean tall men, huge men or something like that, Goliath, who was over there too. When the Israelites will get out of Egypt, they will come across the desert, and rather than take a look at this, because I haven't had a chance to look at a map in a while. I haven't had a chance to make you look at a map in a while.
We like maps. I like maps. Enjoy your eye for that.
Let's see what we got here. Look at my favorite map. Palestine. Yeah, but I can never find it. I can never find it because I don't name it. Like I don't, if I didn't name it my favorite map, you know. Palestine. There it is. This one here. That's not enough. This is going to be anti-climatic. Get a bigger map. Let's take a look at, let's see here. I'm going to force you to do this. You don't like this, but let's do this one. All right. This is the area. Somebody find Israel on this map. Right here. Yeah. Anyway, the way that they go when they come out of Egypt, God takes them down here. And you're going, well, why not just go right straight across and right into Canaan? That's right there. And instead he does this. And the reason he does that is because the Israelites are so terrified of these people right here. Yeah, that they'll get spooked. So you already have this problem, foreshadowing of a problem with that event in Numbers 13 is already foreshadowed, because we already know from earlier in the text in Exodus that he specifically took them around like this so that they would not encounter these people. And now when they go in, they're going to encounter these people anyway. And yep, case in point, God was right. That's what happened.
I know that would be like way later in history. Did they ever talk about the Egyptians being small people though?
Not, I don't think so.
We have historical evidence that the Egyptians are pretty small people. Do you think the gigantic people, I mean, or just a larger race in general, would have just been people who had enough to eat and grew even if they were modern people are?
Yeah, that's a good question. The Romans, the Romans, what's his name? The guy who, Edward Gibbon, the guy that wrote the decline of the rise and, how does he say it? The decline of the Roman Empire. I forget the exact title of the book, but he described the Romans as a race of pygmies. They were that small, but they managed to conquer the entire Mediterranean basin. And they had a special contempt. Yeah, they had a special contempt for the Germanic tribes on the other side of the Danube and the Rhine. And I think part of the reason was they were very tall, and they specifically had contempt for that. They thought of that as barbarian or something. So these tall people ended up getting taken slaves. They never conquered those people, but they would have thought nothing of conquering and enslaving
They have their own talent.
tall people,
I saw a picture of Shaquille O'Neal next to Simone Biles. Amazing difference in height.
Pretty much anybody.
Looks like a child.
You can watch an NBA basketball game from the times and just look at Shaquille O'Neal next to almost anybody. You think this guy's a big dude. Some guy who's 280 pounds, he's 6'7", 280 pounds. And then he stands next to Shaquille O'Neal. Guy's a
So
monster.
maybe these people were as tall as him.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, what is the statement on Goliath? He was 9 feet tall or something like that. But all right. Okay. Let's see here. Let's go back there. Yeah, so that's the Nephilim. They reappear. I don't know that there's any other references to the Nephilim. It will not be until David that they get the Philistine problem under control. So this is the 1400s when the Exodus happens. David is 1,000. They didn't even really then. They will be a problem a long, long time. But it won't be until David's reign that he finally gets around to subduing the Philistines. 500 years or over 400 years. They spell it. Those are the only two references. The one in Numbers and the one in Genesis. Do what you want with it. That's all you get. Sons of God, you got the references in Job. Nephilim, you got the reference in Numbers and Goliath. So, you know, that's what you got. I'm not going to create a lot of theology out of that. That's a classic case of don't work too hard, in my opinion. Okay, so that's the, now we've reached the apex of sin from Genesis chapter 1, the fruit. Genesis chapter 3, the fruit. The Genesis chapter 6, the sons of God and the daughters of men for some reason. And that God now enters the picture in a very, very negative way. Let's see. So now we have God's Spirit. When did we last see God's Spirit enter the narrative? Yeah, go back. It's important for interpretation. What was that for?
This thing I was checking.
You are right. I don't know why I typed two. So there's the Spirit of God right there, hovering over the surface of the waters. The surface of a chaotic, dark, useless, disordered abyss of water. That's what things are. The Spirit now, as an agent of ordering and purpose, cosmology and teleology. Teleology means design or purpose or something like that. Now injects that into the created order, and solely on the power and wisdom of God expressed through the Spirit, we have this perfectly ordered creation. He's there. It reminds me of that passage. He upholds all things by the word of his power, or by his powerful word in Genesis. He takes back his ordering presence, his designing presence, and immediately things happen. The creation feels that pain. And so now he will remove his Spirit. My Spirit shall not strive with man forever. I'm going to withdraw my Spirit, who injected order into the chaos and created this. I'm going to withdraw him and return, by implication, return my created order into this. You could just read that right into it. My Spirit shall not strive with man forever. The earth will be formless and void, and darkness will be over the surface of the deep once again.
That's what the flood will be like.
Yeah. The only difference is there'll be a sun, so it's not darkness. There's still light. What's that?
See how that is.
Yes. You get to see how that's right. You don't need a flashlight in this case. So that's the situation with God's decree, his assessment of the human race. Very unflattering. Sorry, not sorry.
So is he talking about my spirit shall not strive with man forever because he's also flesh, nevertheless his days shall be 120. So he's limiting the time of the human life. And he's foreseeing the flood changing the spirits and men.
You mean the lifespan will no longer be 700, 800, 900 years? It'll be
Yeah.
120, or is it? I'm going to give him 120 more years, and then I'm going to destroy it all.
Well, it took Noah 100 years to build the ark. And then it was another year for the flood. But I think a lot of it is talking about the fact that man's life is not gonna be.
It could be both.
Because as he goes through the scripture, he goes from 120 down to 70, 80 years.
Right. It's not even 120 years. It's, right, it's 4 score.
So basically, man's heart, because it's evil, and, you know, as Jeremiah 17:9 says, you know, God said, okay, if you're gonna continue to, you know, we're gonna continue to drop your, because Noah was basically the last one who lived at 900.
Yeah.
950 years old. After that, his sons would have died, would have basically died within 120 years or so. After that, so.
Does it say who the Lord said it to?
That's another interesting thing. What you get here is a soliloquy. Is God, an internal monologue. God is speaking to himself. And the divinely inspired writer, it's as if he's reading God's mind and taking notes about what he sees. And he doesn't just quote him. He's going to give an impression of his emotional state at this point in just a minute. He's going to assess God's emotional state. There's an emotional, there's not just, it's not a cold and detached, no, you know, I'm just going to wipe him out. He's quite personally affected by all of this.
Well, I'm just wondering if the men we read about in the genealogy, their person before Noah, if they had 120 years, if they knew that, and we're teaching that to their children, so that Noah, when he came along, understood God a little more.
Oh, I don't think they had any,
He followed God,
I think this
so
is,
that there were choices made as human beings, whether they were going to follow God or not.
I think this is, did you see Kindergarten Cop? Arnold Schwarzenegger? He goes undercover he's got to be a kindergarten teacher to go undercover to catch a murderer. So he walks into this kindergarten and it's just total chaos. And he looks at this and he's not talking to anybody as he sits there. Any speaking he does, I don't remember if he does, he says to himself because there's no point. It's total chaos. It's a great movie. I think it's like that. He's just looking at this. And the author knows the mind of God and he's recording what he's thinking. None of these people, I don't think any of these people knew what was coming until he revealed himself to Noah and told him this. And then Noah went to work. It will last not a day longer than is necessary. Noah finishes the ark. It doesn't say that same day, I forget, it's in chapter 7. It might be that very day. It might even be in a rush. It's like the rain has already started like that. Like God is going, yeah, I'm not going to let this last for a single second longer than I have to. Get going, get the door closed. Okay, and then it starts. It's just remarkable. When you think about it if you try to imagine it actually happening, that's more like it, but that's how I see this unfolding. We don't know. Had he had prior communication with Noah or any of the ancestors of Noah? I'm not, I mean, you know, what you get. So there's an important element to this. Remember what the temptation was. Indeed, has God said you shall not eat of any tree of the garden? Oh, God told you you can't eat from any trees in the garden. Oh, no. We can eat from any tree of the garden. You're exactly wrong. We can eat from any tree of the garden except the one tree. Oh, you know why he doesn't want you to eat from that tree? Because if you eat from that tree, you'll be like him. You'll attain some kind of godlike status. Well, that's all right here, right? Your eyes will be opened and you will be like God. That was the temptation, to be like God, godlike. Well, this is the end. Perish. They will all perish. So categorically, the answer to the question, can humans become like God, Categorically, the answer is a categorical no. The pursuit of godlike status resulted in the complete destruction of the human race except for 8 people. And only by the grace of God. He could have just started all over. I'm just going to wipe everybody out, settle it back down, and do exactly what I did before with, James and Rachel instead of Adam and Eve. Picks a name, because he can, but he didn't. There's always a remnant. We have here our first remnant. Noah is the remnant. It's a remnant of 1, but he's a remnant. Noah and the other 7. And not all of them are all that. Remember, sin after the flood will propagate through Noah's seed. So that's not been wiped out. And that's why we're going to need the promise in chapter 12. All right, the sin of Adam has engulfed the entire human race. Period.
So the Lord sees that same wickedness of man today,
Why would we think otherwise?
but he hasn't reached that point yet.
Well, this is all part of he has a plan. He has a redemptive plan, and his redemptive plan is to save the remnant. So his first act in saving a remnant was Noah. Noah was the first act in God's redemptive plan to save a remnant. Starts with Noah. And it will continue now through time till we get to the Gentile inclusion in Acts, and we're still in the middle of it. He's going to save a remnant. The depravity of man is universal, comprehensive. Oh, but let's read it. Let's keep going. So that's it. Now you get the. There's a lot of soliloquy here. There's a lot of internal monologue of God, and then he's going to talk to Noah eventually out of that monologue, where we understand the purpose of God. Now, this is what I'm going to do, and then we see its implementation as he turns to Noah and says, "This is what you're going to do." Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth. And here's that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-fold repetition. And that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. So he's not trying to encapsulate the idea of total depravity. How would you have to change that statement so that it did encapsulate total depravity? I said there's nothing you can do to make that statement stronger. You could put really after it. Only evil continually, no really, or something. So let's go take a look at, we'll close 10:02, maybe not, we got a little bit of time. So here's some different translations of this. It's funny to watch these translations try to capture exactly what I'm talking about. The intensity of the statement of the narrator, of the guy writing. The intensity of the statement. So there's the NASB, which we just read. Now, right below it, the New Catholic Bible. The Lord saw that the wickedness of men upon the earth was great. You notice how the equity thing, male and female, suddenly goes away when I don't see a lot of people demanding that we make that gender neutral, men and women. Well, that's true too, yeah. The Lord saw that the wickedness of men upon the earth was great, it's basically the same, and that every plan that their hearts conceived was nothing but evil. There was no goodness in it. The Lord regretted, we didn't read the next verse. The Lord was sorry, this is New American Standard. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So now the New Catholic Bible. The Lord regretted that he had made man upon the earth, and his heart, God's heart, was grieved. He's emotionally distraught, something about what has unfolded in the human race as a consequence of the curse that he implemented. Without the blessing of God, without the grace of God, for human being, it's a race to the bottom. How fast can we get there? And the answer is about 3 chapters. You can get there in about it takes about 3 chapters of the Bible. That's, I don't know how many chapters there are in the Bible. That's that's how long it takes for the humans to reach the bottom. English Standard Version, the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great upon the earth. There doesn't appear to be a lot of controversy about that. And that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. That's exactly the same as NASB. The Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart, like the New Catholic Bible. Very close to the New American Standard. Dewey Rhymes, which is an 1899 version of Catholic version of Jerome's Latin Vulgate of the 5th century, which is the Bible I grew up reading. And God, seeing that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that all the thought of their heart was bent upon evil all the time, it repented him that he had made man on the earth, and God was touched inwardly with sorrow of heart. I actually changed that a little bit because it actually says, and being touched inwardly and sorrowful of heart, then the next verse comes. But you get the idea. That's the Dewey Rhymes. International Children, misspelled international. This is my OCD coming into play here. Fix this. Whoops. Yeah. International Children's Bible. The Lord saw that the human beings, there it is, gender neutral. Okay, good. Welcome aboard, women. He's mad at you too. He's as repulsed by you as he is by me. Human beings on the earth were very wicked. Yeah, more than very wicked. More than very wicked. Maybe they should have put that. He also saw that their thoughts were only about evil all the time. There you go. The Lord was sorry he had made human beings on the earth. His heart was filled with pain. And then the message. You know, we got to go to the message. God saw that human evil was out of control. That's pretty good. People thought evil, imagined evil, evil from morning to night. God was sorry that he had made the human race in the first place. It broke his heart. So that's us. That's us. So these people, you know, people walk around today saying things like, well, I think humans are basically good. Yeah. I don't know about that. Not from your perspective or God's perspective, and who cares about your perspective? But go ahead. Give me your perspective on, you know, I'm sure God is up there saying, huh, you make a good point. Maybe I'll reconsider, you know, or something like that. So, you know, when we talk about the person who never heard, what about the person who never heard? Well, here's a whole world of people who never heard, and this is his opinion of them.
Yeah.
You know, I told you about a pastor I knew back in the day in the 90s when I was on staff at Crusade. And he was on the opposite side of the fence of me on this. And we were talking about this. I brought this up because we were on the opposite sides on this. And you know, we were talking about it, and I said, so do you, well, I mean, what are you saying? Are you saying that human beings got better? And he said, yes. And I thought, the pastor. All right. It doesn't look like a lot of freedom here. I mean, look at the sense. It's a single-minded obsession. This describes a single-minded obsession with evil. That's what's being described here. There's just no way around it. We have this thing called civility, and we sometimes mistake it for goodness, where we have to live in a society, in a civilization. And so we put this veneer of civilization. We're civilized, but civilized doesn't mean good. It just means civilized. It means if you do wrong, your neighbor will come and burn down your house, or the cops will come and take you to jail, or you'll get beat up on the street. So you behave yourself. And the next thing you know, we think that's goodness. We think we're good people. No, we're just civilized. Take away all the rules, all the enforcement, provide some scarcity. A little harder to get food, you know, or gasoline or something like that, you know, and watch it revert to the law of the jungle. Does that mean everybody goes, it's a race to the bottom for everybody and they manifest the same? No, it doesn't mean that. But it's a race to the bottom. It's a race to the bottom again. Now, it could also be that God has a restraining, it's what Methodists will call John Wesley would call common grace. I think it's John Wesley. His brother Charles was the writer, the songwriter, I think, yeah. But they call it common grace, where he graces the human race, and one of the things that he does is he restrains evil. And it's possible that he does that to this day. And without God's restraining power, Genesis chapter 6, without God's restraining power present, maybe that's one of the things he does to uphold all things by his powerful word. Part of what he does is he restrains human evil as he keeps everything, as he keeps the planet turning.
I would say God's idea of sin and wickedness never changed, because hundreds of years later, in Jeremiah, it says, the heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately wicked, who can know it? So that idea of wickedness never changed.
We have not plumbed the depths of human evil.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's easy for us as Christians to subconsciously have this idea, at least at times, that we're good.
To mistake God's grace for my own inherent something.
And if there's anything good, because it's not good. Because basically.
But again, in Ephesians 2, he says, by grace that we say through faith, and not of ourselves, is the gift of God, and that what's in the forward. So basically, it's still thousands of years after Genesis chapter 6. He's still saying man's evil, wicked.
It's a central theme of the Bible from Genesis 3 all the way forward. Look at the way Genesis is going to unfold. Look at the plots and intrigue and scheming in Jacob's family. It's unbelievable. Remember, the 12 tribes came from 4, 2 wives and two slaves of wives. And it was a competition to keep up. That's what was going. That's the origin of the 12 tribes. The conscience, we take credit for what our conscience restrains us from doing. Don't congratulate yourself for abiding by the dictates of conscience. Conscience is a restraining force in human nature that God provided. You do something, and he provided this mechanism. You do something you knew you're not supposed to. He provides this mechanism that gives you emotional pain. And so to avoid emotional pain, I was watching this show on the Badlands. The Badlands. Those really interesting formations in, is it South Dakota or North Dakota? I don't remember which. And they got all these, Southwest. It's the Southwest. There's all these artifacts, all kinds of interesting fossils and stuff like that. And tourists will come and take them. You're not supposed to. There's signs probably up everywhere. Don't take the fossils. And so people will take these fossils and so forth, and they'll take them home, and then they'll feel guilty about it. So they'll mail them back. But they're not, since they didn't know where they were originally, they're not allowed to just go put them, they can't just throw them back out in the frontier. So they have a pen, they have a place where they put all these fossils that are these artifacts that people returned out of guilt. There's this big old thing, this big old, I don't know, little area. So all kinds of potsherds, like stuff like that, that's all piled up there. Yeah, look at all this. We can't really do anything with it, because we don't know where it came from. But there's the guilt thing working. The nature was the person taking it. That's you. That's what you get credit for. You took it. The restraining influence that God provided in terms of conscience, which I perfectly am satisfied and happy with the idea that he can make that conscience lean on. He uses conscience to lean on you. That's what made you give it back. You don't get any credit for that. You were just trying to avoid emotional pain because it was bothering you, so you had to get rid of it. And it's a good thing that you did, but I don't know that you get any credit from extra credit from God for doing that kind of thing. So that's, conscience is an interesting thing. I really like that subject and how it functions to restrain human evil, which is what it does. That's its purpose. It's a gift of God that is absolutely necessary for civilization to happen. You cannot have civilization without conscience. And we'll pick up right there. Should stop. All right. That's about it. Naomi, thanks for joining,
Thank you, Gary.
and we'll see you next time, hopefully.